Bitcoin has been known around for a while as the anonymous crypto, used by people on the dark web and the Silk Road selling drugs and other illegal goods. But the truth is, Bitcoin isn't anonymous. It's pseudonymous. Think of a Bitcoin address as a username. Everyone knows the username, but they may not know who's behind it. In Bitcoin, every single transaction made with it is stored on a publicly available blockchain. That means every address that has ever transferred Bitcoin can be seen on it. Even if you, for example, purchased something 5 years ago transferring Bitcoin to someone else, your transaction can still be found. If your Bitcoin address were ever linked to your real-world identity, then anyone could see every transaction you've made and known that it's actually you. But see, that's the problem if you want to be anonymous, because most large crypto exchanges require KYC, or know your customer. This requires you to send in an ID like a driver's license or a passport. You obviously don't have to do KYC to send Bitcoin to someone, but in order to exchange that Bitcoin into another currency, such as US dollars, you would probably have to provide some identification. So we've established that Bitcoin isn't anonymous, and it's hard to exchange Bitcoin for something else without providing identification. Now, law enforcement agencies love a currency that has every transaction recorded on a blockchain, and they figured out ways to trace Bitcoin. First, let's talk about the crimes that it's used for. There's ransomware, where someone takes over a computer system and encrypts the files, demanding a payment in crypto to unencrypt them. There's also all kinds of money laundering and drug deals done using cryptocurrencies, as well as just scams. But unfortunately for the criminals, Bitcoin is one of the easiest cryptos to track by law enforcement, because once they get the address of the criminal, they know every transaction they've ever made. Now, if they just have the address, that's not useful. What really matters is if they can pin that to a real person. And this is how they do that. Let's say the authorities have an address that they suspect was engaging in illicit activity. They could just look at the past transactions and see if the address engaged in any transactions with a crypto exchange. In order to buy crypto, you have to go through an exchange, and that means you went through KYC. If the authorities see that the address interacted with one of the exchange addresses, then it's easy. They just go subpoena the crypto exchange to find the real-world identity of the person. But it gets much more complicated than that. What if the exchanges and law enforcement want to detect suspicious transactions? Well, this is where private blockchain analysis companies come in. They use tons of different tools, but here are some of the main ones they use. There are classification and identification tools. These are used to link crypto addresses with real people using clustering algorithms that look for payment processors. They also have a tool that detects illicit transactions. It does this by using machine learning to give a score as to how illegal the transaction may be. The score is based on different factors like the size of the transaction, the origin of it, and history of where the money came from. So in other words, they've gotten really good at tracking people down. And just this past year, authorities seized $4 million of the ransom that was paid in the Colonial Pipeline attack. They had tracked nearly 24 Bitcoin addresses. So Bitcoin isn't anonymous, and it's pretty traceable. So much so that most experts say you're more anonymous using cash.